Thank you. Thank you.
I did not pee there, I swear.
Okay, got it. All right, well, thank you for coming to the Gamers, the Shadow Menace. And it is now time to A the cues. We have lots of cast and creators here, so...
So much for his chair.
Sorry.
Wow. There you go. I don't know. So that'd be done.
Moderating.
Yeah. Throw them at me. Yes.
So, for original characters, what was it like stepping back into that role? And for new players, what was it like taking that control?
Start at the end.
Confusing. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very familiar with the original when I signed on for the project, and even, you know, was learning a lot of the details on set, you know, which is maybe too much of a window into my general lack of preparation as an actor. But it was a real, I mean, it was a real dance for me, sort of filling in the gaps, and there was a lot of crosstalk, you know, when cameras weren't rolling around. Okay, so let's fill me in on like what's the backstory here and there. So, and you know, it's interesting watching, you know, because it, you know, the story's obviously about how we take control of them, but there's no way to really feel that in that room. That's all of us sitting around a table in the wee hours of the morning, and you know, the in-game folks, those actors aren't there, right? So we're having to imagine a lot of that.
What was really great about how we filmed this was that, and I don't know whose idea it was, but we filmed all of the tabletop stuff first.
Yeah.
So it was helpful to us and I've clearly watched the original Gamers and I knew the story, but being able to go first and being able to go, this is our stamp, this is how we're doing it. You know, we didn't have to become beholden to like, well, I guess New Moon really wouldn't do that. Well, screw that. Charlie doesn't know what New Moon would do, so that's what New Moon's doing. You know, like, and that actually made it a lot more fun, and we got to put our own flavor to it, and I think that really aided the movie in a sense. And I think, I mean,
You get to mess with that.
I got to mess with them is what I came up with.
They had to do what we
And
did.
I may be over speaking, but I think it was more fun for you guys because they got to watch all of our footage before they filmed to see what horrible things we were going to make them do.
Well, I think we saw select cuts of what they were going to do, and so it was fun to be able to be a little bit inspired by somebody else's, you know, you had like a little boop, 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 boop when you were moving on the table, and so that's what I started saying when I was running toward the... it was fun to be able to sort of take inspiration from what they're doing.
Yeah, Ben, I think, was talking to me about putting that together. So Ben had sort of forgotten some of the footage he had showed us. So when he was going through the fantasy world footage with the fantasy characters, he was coming to me, he was like, why did Nathan make these weird choices? Why is he yipping as he's running across the field?
I'd like to expound on that particular part.
Then as he was editing the footage around the table, he was like, oh, he's doing what Charlie did. Okay, that makes way more sense now.
It was more of a text message between Ben and I, and we were watching it, and I said, what the fuck? And he's like, I don't know. I don't understand what is going on. I'm like, what's Nathan doing? And then Gabriel's like, oh, no, this is totally out of order. And put it back together.
And I got angry messages from both of you.
Oh, it was all my fault.
Because it was just that the first edit didn't have Charlie starting the war cry. It went straight to New Moon, and so he's just yarbling out of nowhere, and they're like, "Gabe, what the fuck is going on?"
I also received one of those messages.
This is Gabe, our director, by the way.
Yeah. I was worried because I thought I'd like messed up and done something wrong because this is my first Gamers project too, and I'm like, oh, did I do some horrible thing? that am I gonna get fired now? And no. See what you did?
I did. That was my fault. It was all me.
And it's hilarious.
Well, good. I'm glad you
Well,
think
once,
so now.
once you just slide the edit point over
then
like
it worked.
12 frames, then it's fine.
Anyone else?
It was fun. I mean, like, my character had some new context, of course, like, you know, some business suit clothes, and then also he had a law degree, so there was more to springboard off of, yeah.
Personally, I mean, I had a little bit of backstory with I mean, I'd seen the other ones before from just being around Zoe and stuff, but that just kind of made it even a little more daunting that I was stepping into this world that has, I'm sorry you guys, has a ravenous fan base that I was prepared, like, I screw this up, they're gonna lynch me in the parking lot. But it was super fun. So yeah, and then I gotta play with some really cool people.
I'd like to point out the meta that exists in you getting to play new characters, and that essentially the acting became role playing.
Yes. And as Gabriel has already pointed out to me today, I am apparently cosplaying myself today.
You are.
That's even a little more
You
meta.
win!
All right, next question.
How did you bridge the gap, like in writing the story and everything, of where the characters like New Moon and Magellan and whatnot were between the ending of one story to the beginning of this one?
Sure. So a lot of that, we created kind of the idea that we wanted to do Gamers the Series several years back. And I knew, generally speaking, that I wanted it to be a Gamers Leverage mashup. Wanted it to be a straight-up modern heist film. And from there, a lot of it was talking and meeting, extensive conversations with Duke and with Dawn to start with, as we kind of worked on cracking how this would go together. And then once we finally had that aha moment late one night that unlocked it, it then really became clear. A lot of what they had been doing, however, I just pulled out New Moon stuff, where each of them had been, I just pulled out of my ass because I thought it would be funny.
And if you're not aware, there are some season 0 short episodes. We've not seen them.
Yeah, so I mean, it would, and
Which explains the
and
peppermints
also,
in
like,
the pill
reverse
bottle.
engineering story purposes, it helps us that narratively that New Moon has this particular skill set. It helps us that that Nimble has a character set, and that New Moon is addicted to peppermint, and you know, each of these pieces kind of becomes an invention that will pay off at various times if it hasn't already. Why are you laughing?
Because I know it's all bar.
Right, exactly.
You want to fill us in?
You've learned.
Okay, yeah.
So I started off writing this, and then this guy starts posting on our Kickstarter, and he's claiming that he's Larry Dixon and that he knows Mercedes Lackey. Like, who is this dude?
That's a lie, she says.
And then we started chatting privately, and he had all these amazing ideas, so we basically had to bring him on as a co-writer.
I'm with you.
Right?
Yeah. I had a blast, honestly. It's wonderful. And you're talking about the ravenous fan base. As we were getting on to the, about to get on the flight here, I mentioned, oh, well, I'm going up to ZOE Con, and ZOE Con, what's that? Well, it's, you know, with Zombie Orpheus Entertainment and Dead Gentlemen, and the guy who's pushing my wheelchair says, oh, they did the Gamers, right? Wow. At an airport in Oklahoma. So, yeah, not bad, guys.
So where's the script for episode 2?
It's in our skulls.
We need to finish fulfillment of Shadow Menace.
Yeah, so the other bit about the storytelling aspect and bridging the gap, I mean, we talked about the end of Gamers 1, and And then we have an ending point, which Gamers 3 created, so back when we did the DVD or the Blu-ray Kickstarter for the Gamers Darkness Rising, we were able to raise enough funds to shoot what we were calling the shawarma scene, which was the follow-up to the end of Gamers 3, where the Shadow brings in the fantasy world characters and swaps them, you know, and anyway, if you've seen the end of Gamers 3, you know what I'm talking about. Well, we shot the other side of that, and we brought in these guys from Gamers 1 to meet the Darkness Rising characters. And so that's the end, like that's where we're racing towards here. And coming up with, yeah.
Is Matt Vancel here right now? In the room?
I don't think so.
No. Well,
I'm on it.
now, applause for Matt Vancel because he started all this.
And I should probably, so we basically had to create a chart of all of the different timelines that were involved, and realized in doing this that by the time we're done telling this particular story, we'll be making period pieces because so much of this takes place in 2013, before the end of Hands of Fate.
Yeah.
Also, we have Jacob Blackman back there who did the cover for the Farther All RPG.
Any other questions?
On a scale of 5th edition to Pathfinder, how complex would you say the Farther All grappling system is?
I don't know, because you look at 1st edition, and that's got, like, some of it's super simple and some of it's crazy ridiculous.
It's like Ballmaster stupid.
So the grappling chart was created by Todd Downing, who is our production designer for Journey Quest 3. He also writes and publishes novels and role-playing games. And the instruction for him was make the most horrific 1st edition style grappling system that you can. Because if you're old enough, you remember the pain.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't see it too well, but it is all written out there. Like in between takes, we were laughing because we would just read what it said.
The other part that it just didn't fit into the final film, but we put a ton of time into. I don't know if any of you remember, like before the internet, passing around these mimeographed copies of various different kinds of random lookup tables. And you know, certain ones were legendary, and you try to trade them and find all the extra tables to make the game even more fun. And so we put a huge amount of effort into going online and finding all of those old tables from old, you know, bulletin boards from like the early 90s, and aging the paper and putting them together like they've been taped together. And so you have Anna Clausen's character sitting there working with all these tables that have been collected for all these years.
20th generation Xerox.
Exactly. So that guy didn't really make it into the film, but we totally put in the effort to make sure it was authentic for those of you who remember it.
Yeah. All right, so when are they going to run into Mark?
Great question.
Why are you on stage here?
I can answer that.
Because they're going to know his name, and that might freak him out. Yeah. I don't know.
You failed your spot check.
The light coming through has made it very difficult.
Yeah.
And guys, I promise that it does actually look good when you watch it on.
When the sun isn't shining.
When the lights aren't on.
Sorry, Sam.
On the sun.
Sorry, Daniel.
And we did spend a lot of money trying to make it look good, and so.
But yeah, roll a spot check when you have a screen that isn't washed out. And definitely check out Season 0, where we look at a little bit of where Mark has been and the problems that he is facing.
That's probably the best clue.
We have plans for Mark in episode 2.
And you've probably seen the standees floating around.
Yeah.
There's one hiding behind the screen.
That's where Mark's been the whole time.
At this rate, how long until Nathan's playing half the characters?
We're on the way, man. The next Kickstarter is actually to clone me.
The fun part about these shows is always, gamer shows especially, is beard and shaving sketches. Every show we do, it's a question of, all right, is it safe to shave Brian yet? Is it safe to shave Nathan yet?
It's never safe to shave Nathan. But it's fun.
He's coming.
We're talking about someone else now, right?
Yeah, phrasing line.
Say it again.
Will there be an outtakes reel?
There is one.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh God, where is it?
Yeah.
It'll be on the Let's go get it.
Alright, so playing the distraction game.
Yeah. Also, for those of you who don't know, these are two of our crew members who are amazing.
Yeah.
Kept us on track, and our sanity was helped. I know you're not talking a lot, so I just want to make sure you get recognized because you are a big part of this movie.
Yes. And in addition to Sam, our DP, I want to point out Daniel Mamura.
The guy is a ninja with a steady cam.
Yeah, basically Gabriel came to us and said, we need a second camera, it needs to be a steady cam, and we said, there's no money, there's no way, and he said, no, you need it, make it happen. We did, this film would not have been the same without that.
Daniel's here.
I know.
Yeah,
He's right, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And also Samara, who was on set.
Samara responsible for our brilliant casting for our new character.
And responsible for the whipped cream.
And for those of you who don't know, actually John, who is in the movie, but all of the Gamers Tabletop is in John's house.
Yeah.
He was kind enough to open his house. It was like for 3 days, 3, 4, however long it was, for a very long time for us. So we had to take over.
And my wife Sarah's house too.
Brian Lewis, I have a question for you. What in your mind, how do you see the interaction with these original characters going? Once they intersect with Brother Silence.
Oh.
You know what's going to happen.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I was popping in and out. I saw most of it, but I really liked the whole the genre of movie where it's a caper. Heist. Thank you very much. I was blanking on the word. That was really cool. The cinematography is swirling around. That was really awesome. And yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of fun actually when we finally, bump heads.
Are you hoping for a fight scene? You're hoping for collaboration, the ultimate team up?
I think probably he would never take them seriously. Like, no.
Dick versus New Moon once.
I gotta say, I mean, I'll be biased, but I don't know if this is gonna happen, but I wanna know if we ever get to meet anyone. That's a storyline.
I know too.
Okay, well, I don't. I just think like I wanna know. Are we just always at a table?
They only trust us at the table.
They only trust us at the table.
Just feed them information so they'd be confused.
Charlie has been in both groups. That's true. She's the only one in both. Well, yeah, because you're two different people.
Right.
So I'm the only one in both groups. Yes.
You can have Osric versus New Moon if you resurrect Razul.
He's a little older now. Doesn't look like anything he did before.
Nice challenge. Shut your mouth. Are these really? Oh, you got incognito.
Uh-oh.
That's the dirty side of the internet.
Yeah. On those outtakes, time for the dark web. What? No. Yeah, it's fine, Sean. My political career is over after a banana.
There's a lot more banana in this.
I think it just started with a banana.
We do have, Larry insisted at Gen Con last year that we could not do the convention without signed collectible bananas.
They are available.
They are available at the booth. They are signed and fondled by Jay and by Matt.
There are probably a few. I didn't get to sign that many of them, so those are extra special.
Yeah.
It's Matt Vancel.
It's Matt Vancel!
We called you in here because you're the reason that we're here, so we wanted to thank you.
Yes. I'm taking the blame for this.
Unless someone has a question.
Someone have a question about?
No, Larry, don't worry.
Yeah, because you deserve love.
Thanks.
Yeah.
No, not those things again. No, keep them away from me.
Okay, there they are.
Part of your dream, man.
I spent an entire evening with those, with a big box of those. I don't want to see
There is a
them again.
blooper reel. It'll be on the DVDs. And
Okay.
Ah.
Larry and I signed 1,500 autographs in 1 hour one time.
Yeah, catch up.
I'm an amateur, okay? I'm new at this.
Not the way you handled that banana, you're not.
Touche.
I didn't have practice.
That's true. Let's talk about what I'm an amateur. No, let's not talk about it.
Well, one thing that I'd really love to kind of bring out is how involved all of the cast members were with the discussions before shooting and during the writing process. Could you talk a little bit about kind of what it was important to you to bring to your characters and some of the influences that you brought in, or do you just want me to sit here and compliment you?
No, you're doing great.
Yeah, can we have more compliments?
Yeah, we like compliments. That's how
Can
we
you
work
stroke
with
my
it.
hair while you do it?
I don't remember a lot of specifics, but I do remember one particular back and forth where we were trying to really hone in some of the language around, like, are we playing able-bodied white men? And, I was sort of like was trying to string that along as to get as many sort of like, intersecting privileges as possible.
Yeah, because I think the
into
language is,
one
are we playing white men? And then we kind of had the discussion on like, okay, but we can't just do that. Like,
able-bodied,
how do we make this
cisgendered,
even more?
straight, white, middle class,
Yeah.
and then we sort of like honed that until to like where it really worked. But I do remember several back and forths about that in terms of just having the language really work, for. Well, just having the language feel like, I was really able to take ownership over the character, and it's interesting, it was interesting playing this role because I don't identify as a genderqueer person, but this is a genderqueer character, and so, in terms of like how much of that identity, am I able to claim authentically on camera and, really having that feel ethical, and being able to really own that portrayal. But it was really helpful, and I say that that's a genderqueer character. I don't know. I'm still sort of. We're still. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were sort of bringing. You brought that, and I brought sort of like my sort of gender to it. And I just actually really appreciate how much I was able to own that portrayal, so that it worked for me. Ethically.
Yeah, it was actually really nice to be able to beforehand have a lot of email conversations back and forth that where do you see him going? What do you see him, do you feel this voice is okay? Do you feel that voice is okay? There were even a couple of moments that I even read through the script and went back to Ben with a couple of lines. I'm like, okay, you're not giving him enough sass. You're basically letting him say yes when he should say, oh, excuse me. And so we had a couple back and forths with that, which was a lot of fun. And then there was the whole thing at the library where we all got together and kind of just talked about the future of where we kind of saw the characters going. Whether or not they're going to take any of these suggestions, God knows. But it was fun because we all got to brainstorm about like where could this possibly go, where would we see them going, what suggestions would we make, and it gave us a sense of ownership.
I think it was the first time we had both halves of the cast together.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
And it was the first time the original cast of us had been around a table in like 12 years.
At least,
something like that. So it was, yeah, so it was really, really cool to have us and all the new cast and together in one place to really read through what was a pretty good draft of the script.
It got so much better after that read through, though.
Yeah, it did, and I think it was so valuable to have input at that point because you already had something that was pretty solid, and then it was just making, you know, like accentuating the heist elements and bringing more character to it, especially. And I know it's one of those things where when you hear the words of a character aloud for the first time, rather than just reading it in front of your laptop or something, that's when things really come to life. So it was a cool moment.
Yeah.
Did any of you recognize the provost? Any?
Or just her voice?
Just the voice.
Yeah. Have you played Portal?
Yes. Gladys.
Oh God, some brains just exploded.
And the professor, of course, Russell Hodgkinson.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that I actually knew him like 30 years ago at Fort Bragg. How weird is that?
Wow. Indeed. Everyone said wonderfully nice things. I'll say that I was the jerk on set who kept changing the script, and
I had to play the world's largest asshole card with Maggie on this show. I had to be so mean, and I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. And it was needed. I was super nervous, and Christian, of course, he was like, just go be me, and I was like, okay. And so,
no one should be Christian.
No, I know.
That's great. Jill shouldn't even be Christian. That's great advice.
well, look, but it's so I was very nervous, and like the confidence, and just kind of, you know, like if you feel it, add it in, do a thing, whatever. And like, and some of it definitely worked. It's in the final, and other stuff was absolutely like better. Samara would come up to me like, okay, honey. No. Just no. We're gonna redo that take because you ruined it. No, but I was the jerk at least. But they did allow us to play, which again to Gabriel especially, you were so open to all of us just being like, hey, can I have one more because I just got an idea and I really want to try it. And you would say, yeah, we don't have time, but yes, let's go.
I do have to clarify though, I just want to make something really clear. One is, I hadn't been on a film set in years. And this one sorted my shit out right away. Not because of anything she said, but just because like we turned up at like 7 a.m. and I hadn't done this in a long time, and like you were bringing your A game. And I was like, okay, catch up with Maggie. And this one is magic on a set.
Yeah.
You know, and again, like really though, like there was more than one time where she just sort of like slipped in behind me.
Yeah, that's what she does.
And just sort of whispered in my ear.
You
know, and it was just wonderful, you know, in terms of, because, you know, you work on a camera like this and it picks up, I work in theater mostly, you can probably tell, because I'm like a big kind of person, right? And, you know, I was like dialing it in, I was like, oh, dial it down, Brandon, dial it down, this is film, it's not theater, you know? And it was still like big, you know, and like helping me to dial that in even smaller and smaller and smaller, which is what's so exciting about working in this medium. So like these two, like between the bigness here and like the dialing in here, it was like really exciting shoot.
Samara told me to dial it down at some point as well, and I did, and then she came back and went, no, never mind. Keep. Go back up. And I was like, okay, great, because that felt awful. I'm glad we tried it though. I'm really glad we tried it.
And I just want to echo Samara, how amazing she was on set, because literally she would walk up behind us after we'd done a take or two, whisper like just a few words in our ear, and all of a sudden we would have something that was so much better than any of us could have come up with on our own. I'm going to speak for myself at least, because I just, you know, I felt like, okay, I guess that was okay, and then she'd whisper something and I'd go, oh, I get it now. Thanks.
Yeah. So
all of the takes up there were the third takes when she whispered.
Even on a freezing, rain-filled football field where Gabe's out there trying to get his best stuff with the camera, these guys are working their asses off out there. She's there in this double, triple parka coming up going, sir, just lightly on this word. Just think about that. And her calmness and her caring nature was just wonderful. These guys were just trying to keep the cameras going because it's freaking cold.
Take it.
We love you. Tomorrow.
I'm crying.
Serves you right.
I'm gonna pile on for a moment more. Samara has basically been Zoe's secret weapon for like the last 6 years, who comes in and makes things happen and fixes them, and she's amazing, and all of our shows are so much better because of not a secret anymore, Samara Lerman.
So I've got a question for Gabe. I mean,
Yes?
the space in our house where the table was, couldn't be more claustrophobic. At one point we had 20 people in there plus the actors all shoved in space, and you're trying to find angles. Can you talk about what you and Landon did to try and work that out even before you got in there?
Sam had a little bit.
And Sam too,
Yes.
yeah.
But were you there?
How did you miss his handsome face?
I know. Trust me, I didn't.
I saw
I thought he was an actor.
I saw these two working on the angle page, but I didn't see you working. So you two.
Well, that was on set. What you saw was after like several weeks of us meeting.
Because I remember when you first came to the house, I was like, oh god, this is tight.
Diagrams.
Yeah, we had diagrams because just there's film language rules that have to follow, or
it's actually
you
similar
look,
to those tables and the
right. It's like grappling, but for film.
There were definitely takes where like, you know, where the shot needed to be, and so one of us was just like doing it like this, because the camera had to be right here, and it was like, okay, you say all your lines, but just don't ever move. And you ever so slightly would try to react, and then he'd be like, nope, shit, it's our face.
I mean, just so two people will face each other when you cut from one angle to another is an insane math problem, and trying to do all of that while having mercy on these guys so that they don't have to do every scene 200 times.
Well, and also all these people, you know them, you've seen how gregarious they all are, so when they make variations and every take is really great, and you're like, I have to shoot from both shoulders of all 5 people for the whole thing in 5 different sections of time, you're like, that's a lot of work.
Okay, can you do that exactly the same way? A little
less
2 days from now.
Consistency.
And also, I just want to compliment Gabe and Sam some more too, because the challenge that they took on, and Gabe and I were talking about this before shooting, was that like shooting people sitting around a table can look really boring and get really boring really fast. And so he was determined to shoot from every possible angle so that it would be fun to watch. And he did.
Yeah, you succeeded.
How many shots for that dice roll, for that 20-sided? 4 guys were there.
Oh, it was
14.
Yeah, it wasn't that many.
Actually, not that many.
It was like less
No, we got the 20 pretty early on.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
if
just-
it's
I'm
under
just
20
gonna
rolls,
claim
then you're better than average.
credit
right?
for that one right
But
now.
after they left, you kept